Hello, everyone.
Welcome to the first part of our time period. I am Enya Jaime with Sean Ong to talk about the first type of war on our list, which will be the traditional war. This is the most conventional type of war, the one that everyone is familiar with and would think about when hearing about the word war. Specifically, we'll be focusing on the Second World War, one of the most important conflicts in both human history and Filipino history. And it is also, again, the war that most people are familiar with and would think about when hearing the word war. We first want to preface this by saying that art takes inspiration from current events. What we mean by this is that all of the art we will be talking about in this series are all taken from different events that have happened in Philippines history. Given this, all the contexts are mostly taken from that time period as well because the art of that time has been greatly influenced by the events that took place then.
Now that we got that out of the way, let us move on to talk about how traditional war has affected art. On December 8, 1941, the Japanese attacked the Philippines and it occupied it up until the end of the war in 1945. Due to this, artworks were heavily influenced by the effects of war. Common themes included battle scenes, destruction, and the suffering of the Filipino people. After the war, themes of nationalism became prevalent in art. This manifested in many ways, such as the showcasing of indigenous cultures, criticizing colonialism, and protesting of fascism.
Let's take a look at one of the artists who lived during this era of Philippine history. After the start of World War II, one of the most important artists in the history of painting in the Philippines, Fernando Amarsola, moved away from his usual paintings of peaceful and pastoral scenes depicting Filipino culture to those of war and suffering. One of his works, the painting Defense of a Filipina Woman's Honor, made in 1945, depicts the plight of Filipino women who were being forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese occupants. The painting features a man wielding up while a knife protecting a woman who seems to be covering her body up as if her clothes were just torn off. Under the man appears to be a shadow of an unseen person as well as a military cap. These imply that the unseen person is a Japanese soldier who was also the assailant of the woman. The lives and suffering of Filipino women during World War II became a subject frequently portrayed by artists and would even persist up to the modern day.
Noticing the artwork, it can be seen that the colors around the painting are dark, and the general mood that you feel may be negative emotions as well. With Fernando Amersola's painting style of using light, it gives focus to the main subjects of the painting, the Filipina and the Filipino. Looking at them, the scene makes you feel uneasy. We can see the fear in the woman's face as she is scrambling to carry her clothes to cover herself. This alone already gives the tone of the scene that is already happening in the painting. Reading the title itself as well, Defense of a Filipino Woman's Honor. The painting depicts not only the defense of the Filipino man to the woman, but also what was happening to women during that time. They were being used for pleasure by the Japanese during their occupation. Notice as well the woman is white. This can symbolize the purity that women have and it is being stripped away from them. All of this have led to us seeing the nationalistic response that we have towards our own fellow Filipinas, being symbolized by the Filipino defending the woman. This painting gives us a reminder of what happened during the Japanese occupation and allow us to feel a sense of nationalism as we protect our own motherland. Now, even though World War II has been over for decades and many of the powers and people that existed during that time are long gone, it is still considered one of the most significant events in human history, and almost everyone agrees that it's still relevant today. Works inspired by World War II don't just come from that specific era of the Philippines. Artists today still look to that event in history for reference and inspiration in order to spread or protest certain ideas or events. One particular art piece that we will look at using this information is the statue made by Jonas Roses called Filipina Comfort Women. Although made in 2017, this art piece gives us a vision of what had happened during Japanese occupation. The statue, like this painting we looked at a second ago, portrays the suffering of the Filipino comfort women during World War II. However, Roses claimed that his work was not meant to protest against either the government of Japan and the Philippines, but to serve as a reminder of the Philippine history that he wanted future generations to not forget. The fact that the work was in the form of a statue meant to be displayed in a promenade with a historical marker definitely supports the claim that this work is supposed to be a reminder to the public.
Now, while the woman seems to also be suffering, just like the woman in Amor Solo's work, she at least appears to be in a much more decent, less profane situation. For one, she has more clothes on, she's covered better, and is even protected by coral vines, making her look even more resilient. Her pose implies that she's in not any direct danger, and this was probably long after any tragic event happened to her. And unlike the woman in the painting, who was probably facing her assailant in fear, the statue was positioned away from the sea where the sun sets, and thus faced opposite of Japan, the land of the rising sun. So as we can see, even though World War II and even other conflicts, Filipino history continue to play an important role in Philippine art, artworks on them have since then taken the role of history lessons rather than simply a product of the time.
In conclusion, we can see how these art pieces remind all of us what happened to our country during that time. These artists, whether they want to send us a message or simply just to immortalize a historic event, have created these art pieces to allow us to relive a moment in time where we fought for our freedom and our people. Even if they are both quite different, one being violent and while one being more peaceful, both still send a reminder of what happened in our history. With all of this, one thing is for sure, we all still get to learn and educate ourselves about our own nation through art. And that's the end for this video. Thank you for watching, and if you liked it, leave a like down below. And a question for you guys to ponder about. Do you think anything good comes out of tragic events in history or the art they spawn? You can keep this question in mind while watching the next videos, or you can comment an answer down below in the comment section. We'll see you in the next video.